Good morning. Welcome to Tea Time with Amie and Bev.
Good morning.
So it's just funny because Bev and I, we hop on and say good morning, hi, and right away we started on a conversation. I was just like, "Stop talking. We can't talk right now." Actually, I told her to shut her pie hole so I could hear her.
Pretty much. And then the next thing I know, I'm hitting the record
I'm hitting
button.
record right now. Okay, so let's go back to our topic of what we were saying. And it really was less than a minute conversation. And I just said, stop. No more. Stop. So how did you start the conversation?
Well, I started talking to you about like essential oils. I was looking at something online because the flies seem to be quite prevalent at this time. And I know it's because we've had moisture and, logically I got all kinds of reasons why, but then it's like, what's the message really about flies? And each person needs to go look it up. If you're hearing this message, go look it up and see what it represents to you. But there's like a lot of fast moving. These are things that have survived regardless of what has been going on in situations. That you could kill a million of them, they'll still keep coming back. That's my take on it. But there's just a lot more information, and it's just being aware of what's the message. Like, why are they bothering you? Like, why are they in your space? Because they're trying to get your attention. Because for me, I believe everything is about messages, and it's sometimes people make a little bit of fun at my expense on that, but it's like I don't care, because for me, that's what there's always meaning. It's like a little child, like constantly poking at you, like mom, grandma, grandma. Hey, teacher. They just want your attention. So it's like, look and see what the meanings are.
So can you Google it or not?
I wouldn't be able to right this minute without interfering with the screen.
So talking, I'm gonna Google it because I had to Google something else. So go ahead, keep talking about being irritated. How the whole freaking planet right now is irritated in some way, and we're all focusing on it.
Well, and that's another thing. So that takes me into another topic that, I'm on Facebook yesterday, and I was in a great mood. I mean, yesterday was a great day, and then I start noticing people are posting posts that are kind of surprising me, but it's kind of to me, I feel like it's kind of bullying. It's like it's irritating. And so it's like the energy, and some people are liking it. It's like I caught myself dipping into that energy and wanting to respond to it, and realizing that this is all fear. Like that people are trying to push you to do things due to fear of that this possibly could happen to you. And it's like, what's the bigger picture there? I mean, how do we rise above that? Honestly, how can we look at that a little bit differently? And it's to recognize I don't have to be in that place, because I hear people talk about having faith and praying and all this other stuff, but then they don't practice that faith. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them, because they probably don't even recognize, because that's how they've been taught. But it's like, to me, having faith is a knowing. It's a faith that everything's going to be fine. Even if I die, if I shed this skin tomorrow, I'm still going to have lived my life and had a good time, and not let all this stuff irritate me. So I've actually kind of pulled back from some of these spaces, but just recognizing how I'm feeling. Because you've talked about before about going, how you're in a great mood, and you could be scrolling through Facebook and have seen something, not even really given any attention. And next thing you know, you're feeling irritable, or you're not happy, or you're grouchy. And it's like, that was something I full on recognized, but I've also recognized that I haven't really been that drawn to it. It's like, there's a lot of people, like you said, there's a lot of people being irritated. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that they're giving their attention to, that they're advertising for, that they're telling the universe, please give me more of this. Yep. And it's like that. I caught myself in that moment that this is not what I'm participating in. What I'm participating in is raising into a higher vibration, being happier. They tell me what you got on flies.
Okay. So yeah, because I could continue on with that conversation you just started and go in many directions, but
which we probably will.
Yeah, we got what, 53 more minutes. So I just quickly when you Google something, it gives you a little blurb, and there's several, right? So I read 3 or 4. So I'm just going to read the blurbs. I'm not going to go into each one and click on it and read the whole thing right now. I'm just going to, because there are like about 3 different meanings. And so what I Googled was spiritual meaning of flies. And what shows up is fly symbolism and meaning. And so
Mhm.
I'm going to go with that. So here's the first one that pops up. Very first thing, it says fly symbolizes motivation. Its role being to push you forward until you achieve your goal. The symbolism of a fly is also associated with wealth.
Mhm.
The next one, similar to the rabbit, fly meaning can also signify that an exponentially growing source of abundance is available for you right now. Let's see. Spiritual meaning of fly, guilt. Guilt can be symbolized by flies because guilt is a feeling that comes and goes that basically eats us. There was one more I wanted to read. Oh, here's one. Just like the cricket spirit animal, the meaning of the fly also speaks about hate, spite, malice, or blame. Oh, this one. On the spiritual level, the flies symbolizes dirtiness, pollution, illness, disease, and the war. All of that is exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's all relevant.
When you think about, so here's, tell me from your perspective, when I say wealth, what is your definition of wealth? And the
It's,
audience, listen, tell you, think about what your definition of wealth is. So what is it to you?
To me, wealth is like just love, really. It's just the abundance of love, flowing of love, really in all assets of it. Because if I'm not flowing in love, or if I'm not filling in that space, then everything else really doesn't matter because we don't appreciate those things. So wealth to me is like just being like full love, like feeling such energy flowing into my life at all times because everything's perfect.
Okay. In the beginning stages of my growing process, is wealth all had to do with money. I mean, that's typically what we associate it to. That's what I associated it to. And then I had a teacher say, what is the definition of wealth? A class shared. And she goes, wealth means well-being. Well-being, good health. Wealth is good health. And so we as collectively are learning, I think, when something traumatic happens, it gets our attention. That's when we make a change. Usually that's when we drop from our head to our heart. Usually, not everybody gets there. I get it. But that's when it takes something big to get our attention. So somebody who's overweight has a heart attack, doctor says you got to lose weight. Okay, well, it was a no-brainer before. You just didn't want to take the initiative to do it. You need to eat a little healthier foods to care that are beneficial for your heart, right? So it's not till something huge happens that it gets our attention. And so when we think about the flies represent one representation of wealth, well, meaning good health, well-being. And so now with this fear-based thing going on right now around the world, more people are concerned about their wealth or their health. More people are looking at taking better care of themselves so that their immune system is stronger. More people are concerned about what am I putting into my body? And what I'm putting into my body, what is it actually made of? Right? We're giving more attention to our well-being, our wealth. Then it talks about irritation. Well, let me hit on guilt. So it talks about guilt. Well, there is a lot of guilt being expressed because there are, and this is one example of what I feel is happening as far as guilt goes, is that there have been several people transition from the physical body back to spirit in this past year and a half due to the illness, disease that's going on. And there is guilt that relationships were not resolved, that the problems in relationships were not resolved. A person transitioned, and now we're sitting with the guilt. Right? So that's just one example of guilt. And then we talk about irritation. There is so much irritation happening right now because of the divisiveness that is happening. There's divisiveness to go along with the people who want to receive a shot that we really don't know a whole lot about. And then there are the people who are saying, you know, it's my choice. I feel good about not getting the shot. And right, this is where I'm at with myself and my decision. But the divisiveness is that each one is trying to prove each other right or wrong. And that the irritation is, how are people going to judge me? So now I'm going into other people's opinion about me. If I don't get a shot, because everybody wants me to, not everybody, that's a false statement, because people feel very strongly about getting a shot, then how are they going to judge me if I don't get the shot? Right? So irritation, that irritated that it even happened, for one. Irritation that our political leaders, our country leaders, social media, news, the news stations, like all of this is causing a lot of irritation. And so I was in the boat too, like about a week ago. I'm like, why are there so many freaking damn flies? And then here you are bringing it up first thing in our conversation. And it now, you know, after reading that, what I just looked up on Google and processing it as I'm talking, I mean, this was not a pre-planned conversation, that it makes sense. It just makes sense that there's an abundance amount of flies because they're getting our attention.
And how are you feeling? So the whole thing, like with messages too, is like, what were you thinking about when that fly landed on you?
I was totally irritated. I was in the irritation part. I'm irritated the way people are being towards one another. Totally irritated. Yeah. I'm like, this being the way we are treating each other. We're moving away from our fellow human person, humanity. We're moving away from it. We're moving away from the love that we really are, the spiritual being that we really are, the love that's within us. We're moving away from that. And so it's causing more discord in a lot of people. In myself, yes, I was irritated, but I can be like, oh, okay, you guys can go, right? Like I can just be like, okay, you guys can go somewhere else and hang out. So I'm just in a moment of irritation when I acknowledge it, but then I can flip myself, I catch myself quicker and say, you know what, I know you guys can go hang out somewhere else. As long as I change my vibration of where I'm at and how I'm seeing the world, then the irritation can no longer exist. It exists, but not in my experience. Let me put it that way. It exists because other people are in that space. And so they're going to attract the irritation. If I'm not giving attention to it, it's not going to exist in my experience.
Exactly. Just like the post. So just as me witnessing the post, it had nothing to do with what somebody was doing to me, but it was an indication this is how I was feeling. And as soon as I got into that post, and then I thought about the persons that were doing it, because I was surprised by the persons that were putting that post, I dipped right into their energy. I went into that space, and it doesn't mean that they were doing anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. It's all right for them to feel that way, because it's not for me to judge them how they're feeling. That's their path. But it's a reminder for me on my path. It's a reminder for me on, if you will use the jab as an example. If you decide to get the jab, did you do it because you were afraid? Were you fearful for your life? Or were you doing it like, man, this is really going to benefit me? Because I think it doesn't matter from my perspective, if I look at it from a perspective of others, that they think it's going to kill many people. But from a perspective, if I went in getting that shot and thinking I was going to be perfectly fine, then I would be perfectly fine. It's the whole, but it goes right back down to the decisiveness. It's a separation. We don't, but that separation is not outside of us. If you're witnessing this stuff and you're acknowledging this stuff, it's because you are separate on the inside of you. You are separate from your masculine and your feminine. You are separate from your creator of all that is. There's separateness within inside of yourself. It has nothing to do outside of you. It is like watching something. It's like a doctor doing a procedure and like seeing something inside of you and like, oh, let's take this out because I can see it. Everything outside of us is just a tool to let us know exactly how we're feeling. It has nothing to do with the people that are around us. My first reaction is like, I'm going to unfollow this person. I'm going to unfollow. I am tired of seeing this shit. And it's like, wait a minute, because it's not about that. It's like, what's the bigger picture here? Because I've been asking those questions. I want to grow, and I'm going to do things like I said before. How does it feel? If it feels good, I'm going in that direction. And I didn't. It's something almost so subtle when you start to dip I call it dipping into another's energy, or your energy starts to dip. It's so subtle initially, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just like with the self-talk that we have with our self-talk inside of our head. We call them monkeys around here. But for me, because these monkeys were getting pretty loud and they're getting pretty dominant about things, and some of the thoughts I was thinking is like, what the hell? Well, now my visualization is freeing those monkeys. Like, you guys thank you. You served your purpose. It's not because I'm going to put blame onto something else. I'm not going to blame my mind, because I'm the one that this is all one part. I mean, this is not a separate thing. That's right. This is not, it's like my brain's not over here like, fuck you, I don't need your shit anymore. No, we got to love every part of us. And it's recognizing that part. It's recognizing that I'm freeing those parts. It's all right. I love you. Go be with your family. Go be with your friends. Thanks for telling me this stuff all this time, because that was my ego. That was my motivation. That was my fight or flight. I don't need that anymore. I don't need that conversation anymore. So now I'm not in this big area with all these huge monkeys. Now I'm like in this lab. I'm walking through, and occasionally, oh, there's a monkey talking. He needs to be set free. So I'll walk over and set him free. For me, that's my visualization in the last couple of days, that I'm letting you go. Because I don't need that anymore, because I love me more. There's nothing wrong with me. And that's such a process to recognize there really is nothing wrong with us. It's just stuff that we thought that was wrong with us, or stuff that we listened to of someone else's opinion that we thought was wrong with us. I just went all over the place with that, but that's how I do. That's how I roll, man.
You go. Yes, yes, yes. And there are so many directions we can go regarding the flies. And we have our own programming because of our upbringing. And then we go into adulthood with that programming and still doing stupid shit, even though we know it's not right. It's, well, quote unquote, right, or quote unquote wrong. It's just an experience, but we have to define it because we're human. So a right or wrong decision. And then the shame, the guilt, right? The criticism, the judgment, we start beating ourselves up. And it's funny, just before we got on here, I was actually listening to Abraham Hicks, and something popped in, because I'm writing a book right now. And so something popped into me because I was wrapping up a chapter last night, and I felt like, it's like I felt like it was the end of the chapter, but I knew there was something else that needed to be said. And so in listening to Abraham this morning, it triggered something. And so I made a notation just before we got on to this call. And it's about, if you don't feel good within yourself, I'm not talking about illness, a physical issue. I'm talking about emotion. If you mentally, emotionally do not feel good about yourself or about your life, you're the only one that can change that. Like, nobody else can make you change. How many times have you tried to change somebody? Thousands, I'm sure. Thousands of times I've tried to change one person, not let alone all the other people that was in that mix too. I was like, okay, this is my my goal to change this person and this person, because they could be so much better. They have so much potential, right? And this whole story that I create about other people. And until somebody sees their own potential, until somebody else has the relationship with themselves that helps them feel good, I can't change that. I can offer up words, I can offer up encouragement, I can be an example, but I cannot make somebody change. The only person I can change is me. And I know that in those days that I was depressed, and in my lowest of low of thinking and the way I was viewing myself, that it didn't feel good. Didn't feel good one single bit. All the books I read and all the teachers that I listened to, spiritual teachers and motivational speakers, they encouraged me through their words to feel better, to do better, to be prosperous, right? They encourage it. They cannot make me do it. So yeah, we have to start, and I say have to, because again, nobody else can make you do it. So you have to do the work. You have to change your mindset. You have to release the monkeys and let them go play somewhere else, because they're not paying rent. They're not paying rent. And that's what we do. We hold on to these thoughts in our head like they're tenants, right? And we have to deal with them every day. And those tenants are freaking assholes. They're jerks. But you know what? They're not paying rent. Kick their asses out. Evict them now. They don't get a 30-day notice. They get now. You're out. You're done. I'm done with you. I'm done dealing with you. I'm done listening to you. I've just had enough because you don't make me feel good. Now, you let new tenants move in, new thoughts, new way of thinking, new mindset that help you feel good. And it, because those grumpy old negative tenants were living there for so long, you have an expectation of what you're going to receive, because that was something you knew, you were accustomed to. You knew you were going to be stressed out. As soon as that thought came in, you knew you were going to be stressed out. As soon as you see that asshole tenant, you knew you're going to be stressed out. It was already an expectation. So now the new tenants move in, and it's a reprogramming that this thought is going to help me feel good. And it's okay if I take a breath and relax. It's okay if I take a breath and relax with this thought. I'm going to have this thought. I'm going to take a breath and relax and feel good as it's moving through my mind. Wow, that was a great analogy. I loved that. That was great.
Yeah. Because you're retraining yourself. It was awesome. It is awesome, but you're retraining yourself, and that's part of the process. It's part of the process of putting in new information. That's when we say take your power back, that to me is taking your power back. When you want to have control, when you're trying to control everything in your life, there's things that we have control over, and those are our thoughts. When we think that we don't have control over those thoughts, but we try to control everything outside of us, that's again outside of us. It has nothing to do with us. It's going within and being aware of what we're thinking. And so maybe not so much, I would maybe not call it control, but as much as an awareness. And the awareness is huge, and it feels so good. It really does. The transition feels good. And then you start to notice things like, I think I kind of mentioned to you last week, I have a friend that we were supposed to go do something. And then I felt, which I would call being blown off. The person wasn't able to, or whatever, didn't communicate. But it's happened on several occasions, but it's not that I don't love this person, because I do love this person very much. I think this person's an amazing person. But it's like, we got to love ourselves more. I've got to take the power back. And I didn't say anything more to the person besides, I understand family is very important. I said, but communication in all relationships is very important as well. So just a simple no, not today, or, just as simple as anything. And it's that, for me, that was honoring myself and saying, it's not all right. This has happened on several occasions. And I've been like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. If it kind of bothered me, or if it didn't set well with me, it wasn't okay. but what's the better way to communicate? And that's I feel like there's a struggle right now going on in the world. Maybe not so much as a struggle, maybe it's just more of like another tool letting us know this is something that can change, that's going to affect everything. And I really feel, for me, it's like, so the message with the flight, there's always a way to see things. There's the positive way, the abundance, that's motivation, or there's the irritation, the opposite side of that. So it's like, it's all that is again, recognizing what you're doing, what you're thinking, and how it can be better. So I've seen a post a couple times fly around. Every time you have that negative thought, think 3 positive thoughts on top of it. So every time you have a negative thought, if you want to call it a negative thought, how about we just call it a thought that doesn't feel good? If it's a thought that doesn't feel good to you, what are 3 things that are opposite of that feel really good? And like, think those thoughts and then move on with your day. It's because that to me is like taking your power back. This is taking back your power. You're not giving away anything. There's not a judgment one way or the other. And if we're judging someone else, it's something within inside of ourselves. All of it, everything that's outside of us that we see is a reflection of us, everything. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that if someone's being an asshole, you're being an asshole, but there's something within that circumstance or that situation that you are mirroring.
Yep. And when I go back to the communication part, I think we talked about this, that she maybe have showed up because you had recognized in yourself that you're not a great communicator, haven't been a great communicator in your relationships. Yeah. And so by recognizing that, she was teaching you to use your voice about communicating, and in using your voice and about communicating, then you go like, oh yeah, well, I'm not a great communicator either. So this was my lesson to recognize that by me telling her that she's, communication is more important, it was a way of me acknowledging communication is important, right? For myself. Absolutely. And my relationship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I recognize that.
For sure, right? People show up to be our teachers. We're always teachers and students in every situation. And, absolutely. And I forgot where direction I was going to go. I was so excited about everything. Tell me what you just said. You said, dang it.
How everything's a mirror.
Yeah. So anyway,
it'll come to you. It'll come to you.
It just happens that way.
Yep. No.
Oh yeah. Keep talking, because I don't know what happened to my brain. It just like whoop. So keep talking. Tell us more.
What do you want to talk about now?
No, keep going with what we're talking about. Just keep going. It was great.
I mean, I can kind of wander off that a little bit too, because I started reading this book, Beyond Past Lives. And it even has a foreword.
Before you say anything more, I just want you to know, I just bought a book that's called, anyways, another book by Michael Newton where he does life between lives. Just bought that book the other day, Friday. So go ahead.
It's so crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I'm like in the first part of the book, and I'm like, because I do believe in parallel lives. I do believe we have parallel lives, but that belief also means that we don't have anything, that everything runs like concurrent. And it's like reading this, and it's like even that Anita Morjani book, how when she went into her near-death experience, she could see her brother. I think her brother at this point, she was older, and then he was younger in her near-death experience in another lifeline, another timeline. And it's like, holy crap, like all the stuff that we're experiencing can be happening at the same time, because there's no, on the spiritual side, there's no such thing as time. Time is here. So everything past, present, future is happening right now. So this gal, this Mira Kelly, is doing past life regressions. And it's awesome because she reads a book by Brian Weiss when she was like 13 something years old, and she ends up doing a self past life regression. And it was like she has this whole experience. But this really takes us off topic of what we were talking about, though. I mean, it will take you into emotions and stuff, because it talks about emotions.
Because when we think about past lives, we can pull forward lessons to be learned from past lives. So here we are. We're in a global like crisis. We have the collective consciousness creating, and it's like, how many of us are here to shine our light, to be a lighthouse, to be more, practice being more in a space of love instead of fear, right? So no, I think past lives is great in this conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, then it goes back to the slides and stuff pushing you forward. But the thing that kind of caught me is that as she's doing some of these past life regressions on this one gentleman, this one person, because she was just doing it on everybody. She was doing it on all of her family. Like she was doing it because she had a draw. She had an affinity for it. So she's doing this past life regressions, and she's doing this one on this guy, and he ends up committing suicide in, I think it was 1973 or 78 or something like that. Well, then he goes and talks to his higher self. She calls it something else, but he goes and talks to his guidance, like, well, did you teach anything? Because he had planned to come here to teach, and he's like, no, I didn't. So I'm going to come back. Well, he comes back to a time frame that's before 1973. So it was like so crazy. And she's like in this space doing this regression, like, how the hell is this happening? Like how, because time frames don't matter, but time doesn't matter. And we have access to this information for us all the time. You know, I think about this, if you start talking about people doing time traveling and all this other stuff, and maybe it's not so much as time traveling is having an awareness that we have access to all of our lifelines. So we have access to this information, why we came here, what our plans are, what our experiences were in these other spaces, because it helps us to grow. It helps us to move forward. It helps us to trust our feelings. I feel like the stuff that's happening in the world right now is just like the flies. It's a motivation. It's pushing us forward. We're actually launching forward. I feel like we're having such a huge transition because there's, how many conversations do you hear talking about, first of all, past lives, talking about trusting your intuition, talking about energy. I mean, this stuff is happening all the time around us. And it's fast. Like it's jumped forward. When we think about when we were kids, these conversations were few and far between. Now it's like the conversations are happening. Yeah. Well, there might have been like Sylvia Brown, or there was other people that were talking about stuff, but now these days it's like, holy smokes, because this information is, it's so prevalent, and because we're jumping, like we're really moving forward. So it's like we can go back to be easy on yourself because we're going through a huge shift. Just be aware of the stuff that's going on around you. Don't point fingers at somebody else because it has nothing to do with somebody else. It has to do with you. It has to do with how you're perceiving things. Just like me thinking, what the hell are they telling? I need to go wear a mask or don't wear a mask. Why was I getting mad about that? Well, that to me is like a child. That to me is like a child behavior because now I've got somebody else trying to tell me what to do. Mom and dad's trying to tell me what to do, and I'm going to fight against it. Well, I don't have to fight against anything, because if you fight against something, you're going to have a fight, but I can rise above it.
Right. So in talking about past lives, I know we've had this conversation before. What came to me is that if you like through collective consciousness, Abraham Hicks says that we all chose to be here in this moment in time. We've all chosen to be here. And what came to me is that, as you were talking, was we know, well, we don't have proof, but in my being is that there are many, especially women, who have come back as women who had and lived the life of being during the witch trials. And we lived in our truth back then of intuition, of spiritual guidance, of using herbs and natural products to heal. And because it was so foreign and not accepted that at any moment somebody could just claim you as a witch, and then you're put on trial, and most likely you're either burned or drowned, stoned to death, whatever the process was. And so I know in me, and for the way I feel about it, is that all of us that had that lifetime, if we have chosen to be here now, that means we have chosen to come to use our voice, because both Bev and I, and many people, many women I've talked to have had struggle in using their voice, and had to learn to stand up for themselves, and to learn to have confidence, and to stand in their power. And to me, that it's all brought forth from that lifetime, because we couldn't use our voice. We couldn't be confident. We couldn't, right? We were hiding, we were doing things on the down low, and because there was too much fear around it. And so those of us that live that lifetime has come forward to be here in such a time as now, to stand in our truth, to say that there's something greater than ourselves that we can call upon to help us get through this. Then that, whether you call it God or source or love, to me, it all is the same. It all vibrates the same energy. But we've come forward at this time, and now we can be the healers we were meant to be. And we can shine our light. We are here to shine our light. And the more of us that are shining our light, the quicker any illness or disease or virus can be squashed, like done.
Absolutely.
So we have to shine. And whether you believe in past lives or not, that's okay. But if you're a healer of light, of spirit, it is for you to shine that light. And the way we can shine our light is focusing on the well-being of ourselves and emanating that out towards others, just seeing other people well, seeing them healthy, focusing on what we want this planet to be like. But as long as we allow ourselves to get sucked into the irritation and the fear around what's happening, then we are collectively contributing energy to that, and what you focus on grows. So if we collectively, as healers, whatever form that is for you, whatever definition that is for you, a healer can bring the light, shine the light, and it starts with ourselves. So healers typically have a background of being a fixer, and the fixer tries to fix everything. Well, that is external. We're saying everybody outside or everything outside of us needs to be fixed so I can be happy. And the fact is, we turn that energy inward and say, I'm the only one I can change, and I'm the only one I'm responsible for, with the exception of caring for little people. And I'm the only one I can fix. But even saying I needed to be fixed is saying I was broken, and I was never broken. I was just in a space that didn't feel good. And I learned to rise up out of that, come up out of that. And as a healer, it is not our job to fix anything. It is our job to shine our light. It is our job to just hold space of the vision that there's a more of a collective loving energy that is emanating through the masses. That's our job. I mean, you don't have to call it a job. I mean, job sounds like, oh my God, I gotta sit and do this every day and no, you don't have to do anything. It's your choice. But to me, that's what we came to do. So I'm glad you brought up past lives, because I just feel like now is the time for us to be in our truth. Now is the time to be our authentic selves, of shining our light, of teaching others that there is something greater than what we're experiencing. And even if you just want to call it love, then call it love. But love is a higher vibration than pride and despair and shame and guilt. It's even a higher vibration than courage. Like, love is the vibration that we want to emanate more often, as often as possible. So if we raise our vibration, the discord that has been amplified would tone down, and we could diminish it just by raising our vibration.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to say but. And there you go. There you have it.
Because the energy falls away. Just like we say, you can't have love and hate in the same space. It's not possible. In the same space in my body, I cannot be loving and hating at the same moment. It's not possible. You can be loving or you can be hating. So it's really just being really into your power, really acknowledging that we have such value within inside of ourselves. And if something doesn't feel right, it's up to you to make a choice to say, this doesn't feel right. I want to feel better. How can I make that happen? How is that possible? That's what we talked about before, like asking the questions. It's really just moving. We're moving forward, and I do. It's funny that you bring up the witches, because my daughter brought it up too, and it's like, and I know, but for some reason I recognize like would push against it like a trigger. So it's like I'm aware that that's very factual. I feel like we are in a time space now where we are stepping forward, all of us, because we're ready, and it's not coming from a forceful place. It's coming from a love space. So coming from a love space isn't bullying. It's not pushing. It's not trying to. I'm not going to try to make you understand where I'm coming from. You're going to hear pieces of it. Yeah, you're going to hear pieces of it, and then you're going to have an understanding of it when you're ready. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you at all. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means that that's an indicator that there's something within inside of myself that I haven't moved past, or that I'm holding on to that's not serving me.
And stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. And when I say stay in your lane, I'm saying focus on your own self-love.
Yeah.
Because that's where raising the vibration begins. You can't raise my vibration. You can't raise Bev's vibration. You can't raise your mom's or your kids or anybody else. You have to raise your vibration. So stay in your lane with your self-love, because when you have that self-love for yourself, nurturing yourself, attending to your own well-being, your own wealth, then it's an automatic expression towards others. And I think that's, people get mixed up with that. I did. I'm like, well, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. But at the same time, I'm trying to fix and people please and control. And what kind of love is that? Which means I am totally denying any attention to myself, because everything else out here has to be changed, fixed, controlled in the way that I feel it needs to be for me to be even content. I don't have to be happy. Just give me to contentment, because if there's chaos, then I'm chaotic. Right? So stay in your lane with your own self-love, your own self-nurturing, your own well-being. Do what you feel is good for you to help you feel good. Take your vitamins, eat different, hydrate, move your body, change your mindset, have more uplifting emotions, right? That all starts here in your own self, in your own being, in your own body. And then you, as you have more self-love and are raising your own vibration, then you become an example, because people are like, oh, dang, Bev, you seem so much happier. And I'm not sure what but you're glowing. Are you right? First, are you pregnant? When anytime a woman's glowing, they think they're pregnant. No, brother, sister, I got my spirit going. I got my self-love going. I'm shining my light. I'm being an example, and it's affecting my complexion. And I'm radiating this love for myself, and you're picking up on it. How wonderful is that if each one of us did that? You can tell I'm so excited. My arms are going, my eyebrows are raising, my voice is it's just so exciting. Like, if there's anything that you could do, you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in a higher self. You don't have to believe in collective consciousness, past lives, or anything else. Just believe that love is a higher vibration than the shitty emotions you've been feeling. And if you can't get to love, at least just start moving up the scale of emotional vibration till you get there, one step at a time. You can't go from deep, dark depression to love like that. You could if you wanted to, but most people can't get from there to there in a moment's notice. And so you practice and you just get better, and you're aware of who's paying rent in your head, and who's occupying the space in your head and in your heart. Your heart might be wide open and it's empty. Like there's total vacancy because you haven't been filling up on it. You haven't been filling your heart space. You've been filling your head space. And a lot of that is based on what's being shared on social media and in the news and from the fear-based conversations.
Doesn't feel good. So change the routine, change the habit. Because a lot of that stuff to me is a routine. It is the habit. You know, it's something else that's interesting. So we were talking how we started the conversation out was listening to the messages. Last night, I kept getting messages, and this is my experience and this is my belief, but I kept getting messages to the fours. And then finally, I think before I finally looked it up, it was like 44444. I was like, okay, all right. I'm looking it up. And it's like, and it's like information. It's so subtle, and it's information that's coming through. It was persistent. So and I wasn't giving that much attention to it. I don't know what else I was doing that seemed like it might have been catching my attention, but it was like this stuff that was happening prior to something else happening. So this stuff is happening. And then part of what 444, you know, all the fours talks about is talking about that you're surrounded right now by your angels. So I'm surrounded in it and being uplifted. Well, then I end up going to bed and I start hearing, I feel we can call it good and evil. We can call it a million things. The energy that was coming through at this moment was bad. It didn't feel good. There's been times where I've heard someone that's very, very much in my heart. I've heard his voice and it's coming through with a negative energy. And I'm like, wait a minute. So it's like, I'm telling you this because it helps people to identify when you start receiving messages, when you start seeing things, it always feels good. It doesn't matter if it pops in your mind's eye and it looks like a deceased one, how does it feel? If it pops in your mind and it looks like a deceased one and they're giving you bad stuff and it feels really bad, it's not your deceased loved one. It's another energy coming forward, trying to portray somebody so they can create more separateness. Because I do believe that this is something that's going on because some of this stuff doesn't want to be let go of per se. Because this stuff can feed off certain energies, which you can, I mean, it's just whatever you believe.
Well, let me just interject here, because if you think about it, how many people, when you're in fear-based, you're in ego. Ego is total fear-based. And the millions of people who are in that space.
Yeah.
And so it's bringing up that energy. And so that energy comes in and then we listen to it. Go ahead. It was just a
Well,
thought.
so anyways, I was getting all the numbers. So it was just like letting me know I'm surrounded by angels, and I go to bed and I hear this voice. I hear this thing and it's like, I called on my angels, and I'll tell you what, it stopped right away. I wasn't in a space of negativity. I was in a space of I'm relaxing, going to sleep. And it was like, to me, it was like a precursor, like them letting me know, reminding me, hey, we're surrounding you. And then I'm going to bed, not even thinking anything more about it. And then I start getting something and it's like immediately I stopped. Well, then someone else was like, I was up till midnight. The energy in the house was freaking crazy. I don't know what was going on. I had to put my hat on, or, you know, because there's certain things that,
Last night?
Yeah.
Was, I don't know a whole lot about it, but the Lionsgate was yesterday.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of high energy going on.
And I think getting rid of, you know, bringing stuff to light and stuff like that. So it was just letting me for me, I felt like it was just letting me know that there's nothing that can harm me. There's nothing that can hurt me. I have my faith. I have my beliefs. I know that I'm protected. I know that I'm surrounded by God and the angels. I know I'm surrounded by love. And it's like I've even talked about here, regardless of all the stuff that's going on, if someone wants to show up on the property or whatever, first of all, if I'm in a high vibration, we're in a high vibration at this location, then the people with the lower vibration is not going to see this location. It's not possible. It's the same thing as trying to see love and hate in the same space in one person. It's just not possible. So, but for me, it's just like being aware of the messages, be aware of how the information flows through. It was easy. And then it's like all of a sudden, and this time it didn't try to portray someone else's voice. It's a similar energy that's popped in a few times And it's like, I'll have earplugs in and I'm popping them out. I'm like looking around like, what the hell? Now I know. It's like, no, you're not welcome here. This is not, I'm not your tool, or I'm not a tool. I'm not, because I'm in a different space, and I am in a higher space for sure.
And you know what? You're going to transition exactly at the time you're supposed to transition. You don't have control over
No
that.
matter what. Yeah, no matter what. Doesn't matter.
So
However I chose it to happen.
So even all those that have transitioned because of the virus, that was part, and we could go into a huge old conversation about it, and we're not going to. Do your own research, feel what feels good to you. But they were a part of that. Their transitioning is a part of the process of us healers shining our light, because so many people are in the guilt, and so many people are focused on the fear of dropping the physical body, and so many people are in fear of what's happening on the planet, that we need you to shine your light. We need you to rise above in the space of love and shift the energetic vibration that is being portrayed.
It's true. And that was the plan. That was the plan. That was the plan all along. You know, it's something, going back to that past life book, when she's asking questions, because after she does the past life, she'll ask the higher self, like, what did you plan on when you came here, and teaching. And it's like, it takes me back to my brother. I always felt like he had such a power about him, like his energy was very powerful, very strong, and not powerful in a harmful, like in a bad way. He just had a very strong energy. And it's like, I could just imagine what his higher self or his guide saying, did you teach? Well, yeah, he taught a lot. He taught a lot, because my kids decided they didn't want to touch drugs, because they saw how his life was. But they also saw that he was a good dad. He tried to always be a good dad, no matter what, regardless of the drugs, because he loved his kids. That was just part of his experiences. That was part of probably his plan to come in here. And because he was a great teacher, he helped a lot of us value life. Jim passing, dying from a heart attack, that was probably his plan. I mean, I say probably, I say that because that's for everybody else's benefit. That was his plan all along. He planned that. He planned on coming out that way. And that was in that instance, I had an opportunity. It was a choice. I could have let that bury me. I could have let my guilt bury me of how I could have said something differently, or, everything could have been so different, even though things were they were actually going in such a great direction with us communicating and just valuing each other as souls that we are. But it's like, it was an opportunity. So it's always a choice. We have all these things. For me, I feel like when those that are closest to us, is such a huge awakening that the path that we've been going on, or the thoughts we've been thinking, aren't working for us anymore. And this is a huge opportunity to grow from. It's a huge opportunity to learn how to let go of the grief and the hate and the judgment and the what ifs and what could have, should have, and would have, all of it, because none of it serves. None of it does. And it was the plan all along. It was a plan all along. How was I going to grow from it? Well, I made my choice. I know what feels good for me. Thank God I was on this path even prior to.
And I'm going to use that as a prime example, that when you were the two of you were inhabiting a common living ground, then there was a lot of resistance, because you're focused on him and fixing and controlling and trying to make things shift in such a way so you could be happier in the relationship, and his resistance to your process didn't work for him. And he dug his heels in and said, no, this is the way I am. But he also was hiding things and lying about things, which didn't feel good to him. So as long as you two were in that same space, there was way too much resistance, resistance. You created space between you. And then, because that opened you up to drop the idea that I need to make him change so I can be happy, I'm just going to move in a different direction. He can be who he is. And then the communication start blossoming
Yes.
because the resistance was dropped. It's the
Yes.
same on a collective level, that
Yes.
as long as we're in the space of fear around the things that are happening, we are causing resistance. We're causing the resistance. We're causing the resistance. We are creating that. When you create space between you and the conversations, between you and the social media, between you and the news media, between you and your, these other ideas that don't feel good to you, that dropping the resistance opens you up to bringing the attention and awareness into yourself and allowing the rest to move in the direction they're going to move. But the more you shine your light, you and that love, you have more influence on people without even talking to them. You don't go sharing, your ego wants to tell everybody, oh, but I'm loving myself. And since I'm loving myself, then I'm just emanating all this love and you're picking up on it and I'm changing you. No, 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 and no. We be in that space of love. And when we emanate that love out, it is affecting hundreds of thousands of people. Not one, not just your house, hundreds of thousands of people, just by raising your vibration into a space of love. But turning your attention and awareness away from what doesn't feel good is the work. And so the work, just like with Bev and her husband, was turning her attention away from what didn't feel good. She started focusing on what was helping her feel good. And then the communication started being more uplifting, more ease. There was more flow. There was more connection. This is where our work is, dropping the resistance and being in that space of love for ourselves.
Yes. It's true. And really, it's really reflecting on, really it's looking at yourself, because we talked about it. I think we talked about it last week. I don't know. I've talked about so much different stuff, it seems like lately, but that we experience a lot of stuff on ourselves when we're going through this awakening. Sometimes this doesn't feel so good because we recognize the things, how we showed up, but it's not to punish yourself. It's just recognizing. It's recognizing that you don't have to be in this space anymore. You don't have to feel like this anymore. That's what I think, what it was. It took me back to, because I was even having a conversation last night. It took me back to, well, you don't have to answer that phone call anymore. Every time he calls you, you don't have to answer him. What? If I don't answer the call, he's going to call a million times and let it ring a million times. So what?
Turn the ring
Eventually, it's going to start slow down. And it's like that little step, that little tiny step was such a huge thing, because that was the beginning of a beginning. It was it was such a little snowball, right? And it started rolling down this hill, but it just created so much more from that little tiny instance. And that's one little thing. All it takes is one little thing to say, I just don't want, that doesn't feel good to me anymore. I don't want to feel like that anymore. How can I feel different? Well, this is how you can feel different. Changing that one little thing. Don't answer the phone call. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. It's that simple.
And there's healthy conversations. There's manipulative conversations. There are argumentative conversations. You get to choose which conversations you want to be a part of. And if it has anything to do with anything other than a loving conversation, don't have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Go have a latte. Go take a nap. Go laugh. Go dance. Go do something. Don't have the conversation.
Yeah,
I honor.
because it's that simple.
So if somebody starts the conversation, I honor where you are with this topic, and I appreciate your input, and I'll take it into consideration. And that's all. There's no moving forward with the conversation if it doesn't feel good.
Exactly.
and you're honoring the person in front of you. I honor your input. I honor your opinion. I'll take it into consideration. Thank you. How about we go have that latte? Or how about, you know what, I got an appointment I got to get to, and you may want to just create separateness, distance between you and that person, you and that conversation. And that's a choice. Just like, don't pick up if somebody's calling you, you know it's not going to be a good conversation. It never is a good conversation. They draw you, suck the energy out of you. Don't answer the phone. You have voicemail, they have text. And if they're blowing up your phone, turn the ringer down. Who cares?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer the phone. You don't have to have the conversations.
And it's just saying to yourself that I don't have to be in this energy. It has really nothing to do with the other person. It's honoring yourself and loving yourself enough to know this doesn't feel good and I don't have to be in this energy. It's not, you're not doing something against someone else. You're not trying to punish someone else. Your thoughts are not in that space. It's just loving myself, and that doesn't feel good right now. Period. Love yourself.
Point. That was a good conversation, Bev.
It was a good conversation.
I think we did good today.
We covered the map of the whole world, I think.
I'm telling you, solved all the problems. All you gotta do is be in the space of love. Just saying.
Oh my God. Yeah, seriously though.
And you know, there are other people who want to hear this, who need to hear it, who would benefit from hearing it. They don't need to hear it, but they could benefit from hearing it. And so if you found this conversation stimulating to you, that really got your mind moving in a new direction, and resonated with you. This is the key word, is that if it resonated, any piece of it, doesn't have to be the whole conversation, just a piece of it. In the space you're in is in the space you could receive that piece. That is the piece you take and implement. So you could listen to this 100 or 1,000 times and you're going to hear something different. Take the piece that resonates with you and implement it. And you know that there are other people around you, or that you are struggling in some way, that they could hear our words, and something for them will resonate. But you got to share it. So share us, let people know we exist, share it, share the content. And when you're repeating our words and they say, oh, that's good, how did you learn that? You be sure to share that Tea Time with Amie and Bev was a contributing factor to your conversations. Just saying. Anyway,
just to add to that, I would say, just real quick, be aware too when you're listening. If someone pops into your mind, because this has happened to me, and then my mind starts talking myself out of sharing it. But when someone pops into your mind, like, not you thinking, oh, this would help somebody or this would fix them or whatever. When they pop into your mind, that's like the universe saying, hey, share this with this person. And you can share it with the person and then say to them, I don't know why I'm sharing this to you. You popped into my mind. I don't know what, you may get one word out of it. I don't know. Because you're not this, and that's you not taking responsibility, because it's not up to you to decide how they take or receive something. But for some reason it popped in, and all you're doing is listening to your intuition right there. And then you're just forwarding on information. That's it. You're beginning to practice listening to yourself.
And don't get hung up on if they listen to it or not. Do not bug them. Do not call them.
No.
Do not stalk them. You did your part. You shared it. That's all it can be done. The rest is up
exactly.
to them. So drop
absolutely.
the resistance. Drop being the fixer and the control freak. So, and again, it might just be that you're learning to listen to your intuition, and that's one way. So
absolutely
let it be as that. Anyway, you can connect with us. We have our YouTube. We're on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Podcast Addict. So there are many platforms that you can find us on. No excuses. We have our Facebook business page, which is Amie and Bev, and we have a group. So Facebook group, it's Amie and Bev Community. And so many ways can connect with us, even through email. You can email us, Amie, AMIE, just so you know, and Bev @gmail.com. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, have a fantastic week. Make a fantastic life, man.
Make it a fantastic.
Just do it.
moment. Make it a fantastic moment. Just practice on making a fantastic moment, and then moment and moment and moment, because that's all we have. So with that, we will see you, whether in physical form or in spirit. We'll be with you next week.
That's right.
We
That's
never
right.
know. We never know. We gotta be real. We never know. So
The plan is.
the plan, our human plan is that we will see you next
That's right.
week, or you will hear us next
That's right.
week. So with that, thank you for hanging out with us. Again, be sure to share this. I think this, of all the conversations we've had, that this has been one of my best, one of my favorite, not my best, but favorite. I
Awesome.
really feel like today's conversation was incredible. So thank you for that, Bev, for being here.
Thank you.
And all right. Love you all. Take care, and we'll see you next time.